In Luke chapter 7, there's a woman who approaches Jesus at a Pharisee's house, and she comes up behind him and begins to wash his feet with her tears. And after she had washed his feet, she began to anoint him with alabaster ointment. And so she begins to anoint Jesus, and this Pharisee looks at him and thinks, if he knew what kind of woman this was, that he wouldn't be allowing her to touch him. So Jesus looks at him and says, Simon, I've got something to ask you. And so he tells him a story about these two men who were in debt to this creditor. One man owed a lot of money, and the other man owed just a little bit of money. And Jesus says that the creditor winds up forgiving them both, the man who owed a lot and the man who owed a little. So he looks at Simon and he says, out of these two men, who do you believe loved the most? And Simon, understanding this question, says, well, probably the one who was forgiven the most. And so he looks at Simon and says, you're right. He says, this woman's been forgiven much in her life, and because of that, she loves much. You've been forgiven little, so you love little. So when I worship, I believe that in my worship, it is a way for me in an intimate moment to tell God how valuable He is to me in my life. And when I look back over my life and over the things that I've done and the things that I've been delivered from, I think about the way the Lord's kept me when I couldn't even keep myself. And because of those things, I believe that my worship is the way it is because of how much He's forgiven me and how much He's done for me in my life. His value, because of what He's done for me, is above anybody else's value in my life. He is the most valuable to me. And the way that I get to display that to Him is in my worship, in my moment of worship. And I can worship without there being music. I can worship when there's a lot of music. Worship is beyond just raising your hands and singing along with the worship song, even though that is a form and that is a moment of worship. God actually calls for us to do these things, but your life is worship. His value to you can be shown every single day by everything you do being done unto the glory of God. And so that's how I live. I live a life of worship, a life of showing God with my life how valuable He is to me. That's what this woman does in Luke chapter 7. Not only does she give Him the most valuable thing she had, which was the alabaster ointment, but she also, not having water in her hand, squeezes out everything that was inside of her to wash His feet, to pour out her own tears and use her own hair to wash the feet of the man who would hang on a cross for her and every one of y'all's and my sins. He who is forgiven much loveth much, and this is why I worship.
Your love is like a storm.